Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War, Grin, and Barrett event, in which the Urskayan Blue is added to the game. If you're playing on Nintendo Switch, the version, or the event week for today will be in the top right corner for any of you that want to see. The main thing to really mention about Nintendo Switch version is Yasmin's Pride is available on it, so you definitely want to make sure to get that weapon, as it is an insanely good weapon that won't be obtainable pretty soon. But other than that, for every other version of the game, Urskayan Blue, this is a pretty underwhelming yellow-blue troop. The yellow-blues end up being used for Dryad and Knight Coronet early on in the game. Later on in the game, you would definitely want to use it to fully trait your Cedric Sparkle Sack for the gold bonus, so you can also use it on things like Princess Elspeth, Lord Ironbeard, Taloka, and pretty much any mythics that end up using it. As far as this troop, it is very underwhelming. It's a small amount of red gems, only 9. And not even 100% chance, but a 50% chance to enrage all allies. This is, however, technically the best low rarity enrager. However, there are plenty of things that are legendary that have the capability of enraging your entire team. You can also just get Titan to level 70, and then you get enrage every single extra turn you do. So there really isn't much of a need to use this troop in pretty much any instance, and all it has as far as traits is fast. So unfortunately, pretty underwhelming. You're basically only going to be using it this week to gain +5 extra glory for every PvP battle if you want to try incorporating it into your team. But that's pretty much the only thing it's going to be used for. Even from an early game perspective, it's not going to be good enough to really try putting into anything. As far as our event objectives, as I already mentioned, we get +5 glory whenever we use that Urskayan Blue. This week, that's going to be the only thing it's useful for. 10% to all Urskaya and Urskayan troops, because the kingdom is, of course, called Urskaya. But every single thing that's basically Urskaya related has 20%, essentially, since the good majority of that kingdom is Urskaya's. But as far as kills, all you have to do is just kill a bunch of things in PvP. We'll end up getting a bunch of gems from that. Highly advised, as it's one of the bigger gem drops you can ever get, particularly from a weekly event. It's the actual highest, specifically from a weekly event, so definitely make sure to get that down. 150 gems, 7 gem keys just from playing a bunch of PvP this week, and it doesn't even matter what battles you take. Every single battle will indeed net you some form of value. As far as event keys this week, this is probably one week that is worth skipping. It is currently, of course, Urskaya. Gosh, I cannot get that. It's Urskaya's, Urska's is what it is, or sorry, just Urskaya's. But, yeah, this is everything that we currently have available this week. As far as things that are relevant to any degree whatsoever, it is basically nothing. There's not a single drop you'd really need from this kingdom. The only thing you tend to really use occasionally is Leshy, which is a common, so you probably already own it. The Bounty Hunter troop, that you can easily get that off of gold keys and glory keys. Maybe the Legend Urskila, which ends up giving too many things with this Urska phrase in it, but this ends up giving 50% to all Urskas. Not the kingdom, but the Urska typing itself. So this is pretty useful, mainly for Sentinel hero classes. This does allow Sentinel to get 50% mana, and you can also use it, of course, on all the other Urskas. But other than that, that's pretty much the only relevant troops. King Mikhail is pretty underwhelming, and Doomclaw is also pretty underwhelming. It's a really inconsistent Devour option. So this is a great week just to skip on event keys. So if you were to open event keys, I would say just go until you get Urskila. And once you have Urskila, pretty much just stop using event keys, as there isn't much else in the drop table unless you are running, unless you only need a few more mythics left, and you still need Doomclaw. That's about the only time you'd really need to go for. I'll skip over raids and save it for last. This is the main thing we need to go over. As far as event things this week, we have the Warrens on Tuesday. If you're camping it, make sure to keep it low. Wednesday, we have the Mimic Pet. Thursday, we have nothing, because on Friday, we are getting 2 new things. A Mythic that is like Infernus, but with stun and a slightly different ability, as well as a brand new hero class, the Dervish hero class. It'll count as a monster and a Drifting Sands, and it'll have the highest dodge in the entire game, having the capability of having a 30% off the traits, a 20% off the traits, and a 30% off its perks, for a total of around 44% skull dodge, making it the highest in the entire game, as well as the highest mitigation / dodge in the entire game. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Unfortunately, it doesn't really have much else going for it. Its typing is pretty bad. Its other trees don't really have much synergy together and are just relatively towards the weaker side. So it's not really going to be used for much. However, it is noteworthy in that it will be the highest dodge in the game. However, you're most likely just going to be using Sentinel, because even though it's just mitigation, it has way more barrier, whereas this thing has no barrier whatsoever. So yeah, it's going to be kind of average hero class. and we'll go over teams for that in a moment. But let's go head over to Soulforge. There are 2 things worth crafting in Soulforge this week. The main one being Wardbreaker. From a natural useful standpoint, this is the most useful thing that is currently available. He is an okay first craft if you did want to craft him as your first mythic. However, he's normally more towards like a 4 for 5th, though with first normally being something like a Furnace. But this thing does damage to all enemies and explodes a bunch of gems. His biggest downside is he has a ridiculously high mana pool. However, he gets so much mana accumulation that he can normally fill it back up. He does not require traits to be useful as well, which is kind of nice. However, he could potentially get more damage off his final trait. He ends up hitting that onto magic. But overall, just a really nice AoE. Biggest issue he tends to have is against Mana Drain and Submerge, because of course, since he hits all enemies, Submerge will be able to hard counter him. And obviously with that high of a mana cost, the second highest in the entire game, so can anything that drains mana. But aside from that, he tends to be a pretty solid mythic. The only other thing is Uryali. While Uryali herself is a pretty useless mythic that you may occasionally use in true damage teams, the whole reason of why you would want to get her is because Mists of Scales can be brought to 14 stars currently, and at 10 stars you would require her in order to get +1 armor, and anything beyond 10 stars would of course require her as well. So that's the only thing that you would really bother getting her for. Not so much to use her, but more so to upgrade the kingdom if you're at the point of starting to upgrade 10-star kingdoms. But that's about it as far as the Soulforge this week. So let's go real quick just over the team that I was mentioning. There's 2 basic things that I just want to show here. One is the Dervish Clash. This one I just want to show, not really to use. Of course, Dawnbringer into triple Sandrunner. Some other options are spamming Scorpius. You also have Great Maul. But those are pretty much all your options. I would say Dawnbringer into a bunch of Sandrunners and Mang into a bunch of Scorpiuses and assisting troops is pretty much all you can use. There's only, I believe, about 6 options that you can end up using. As I mentioned, the restriction is to Drifting Sands as well as to monsters specifically within Drifting Sands. Oops, where that is. Where'd it go? Monsters. So these are your only 6 things that you could use. So if you have multiple Scorpiuses, you can synergize that with Mang. You can maybe put a Great Maul there. But there really isn't much to choose from, as you can see. So basically, just Dawnbringer into Sandrunners, or Mang into Sandrunners, or Mang into Scorpiuses, and stuff like that. About the only options you're really going to have, because you only have about 6 things to choose from. Not really that many options, to say the least. And other than that, the actual team I did want to just use real quick. The easiest way to go and get the glory this week is just to use it with a bunch of beasts, and just go quick kill 1 trophy battles, the ones that are weaker, and basically just do it how you play Explore. Just take out your weaker battles, bring out this team just for some quick glory. You could even set your hero if you want to get an additional +1 glory. Currently I just have it to Warden, so it's 4 times beast. But if you wanted extra glory, you could switch it out. But we just get a bunch of glory that way, and could potentially have gotten 10 if we used a hero class that had a +1 on it. And just doing that on the easier battles whenever you see them as you're doing all your PvP grind this week, since you have to kill 750 anyways. And of course, the easier way is just to go to casual PvP, keep her picking until you have an easy battle or a firebomb battle, and simply do it like that, and just go into another battle, kill it out, get your free glory, and repeat until you have both the event objective done and a bunch of glory in your pocket, since he's giving you 5 glory for free every battle. That's pretty much the game plan with that. Anyway, so of course this week we have raids. This is Urskayan raids. As far as the weapon, it is pretty underwhelming. All it is one of those kind of divine protector like weapons. There's plenty of these in the game. They just added it for Urskayan. Keep in mind that this is the kingdom, not the typing, so it only works specifically within the kingdom. There's almost no real point in this weapon because it has a bit of overlap with other stuff in the kingdom and just doesn't really work out that well. Wouldn't really advise it. I think maybe the only time is maybe if you're using Warden with like 4 times Urskas or something, but even then you'd probably use an attack-oriented weapon instead, so not really much of a point in bringing this thing out. Of course, you'd still want to obtain it for completionist purposes and stuff, and in case it ever becomes useful in the future, though as it currently stands, it is a pretty average weapon at best. But as far as what I'm mainly going to be running, I'm going to be running Mang, the new why do they have such weird names for everything? The Burr-and-Gary troop, which of course is the raid troop for this week. Nothing really special about him except that he gives a random enrage to one of your allies. Doomclaw just here for the extra enrages and in case we devour the first 3. And an Urskila here because I'm using the Sentinel and it'll give half mana to our entire team, including to our Sentinel hero class. If you don't have Mang, you can run with never mind. I was about to say Dawnbringer's replacement. No, but if you don't have Doomclaw or Urskila, you can end up getting some replacements. Of course, we have all of these as options. Probably one of your better bets or things to consider is you have Leshy if you need Entangle for anything, though do keep in mind that won't end up working on the boss. You do have a backup and rage option if you need something really cheap. I'll be able to create some reds. And other than that, you'd probably want to put at least one Baba Yaga into your team. I'm currently not using it in this team, but this is a summoner, and this will allow when it starts hitting you over and over again to have a meat shield that will end up absorbing some of those hits so that they don't necessarily hit your hero. You could even potentially set your hero to something that has stealthy and keep casting with this and try to make sure that they don't really hit you. And you also have the capability of creating some skulls. So if you want to feed that into your main, if you feel like that would end up working better, you would have this as an option. And you'd be able to get more enrages off of this, since you could potentially enrage your entire team by casting his ability, which will allow your hero to enrage more often if you want to go down that route. So there's all those options. For now, I'm just using this, and basically all we have to do is just mang the boss, hit the boss. Doomclaw is our backup to clean up the other three, and whatever we can't kill off with Doomclaw, we can simply just poke with skulls. And of course, always now, we do have those potion effects, which are very, very useful for all of these battles. Luckily, there seems to be some fire bombs around as well, which makes this even easier, since all they do is just poke us and just kill themselves out. So one whole less thing we have to go and kill. Of course, that will start to be a lot of damage later on, but it won't necessarily be enough to one-shot anything. Anyways, let's go and just throw that on his last slot, kill that out easily. Hopefully get Devour here before we do is go for a Skull, which means we don't have a Devour chance anymore, but oh well, we'll throw this down. Get our Poke. That does boost based on Enrage, but the more active turns we get, the more Enrages. Also, that gives Enrage to everything. It also help boost ratio him. And that is pretty much all we have to do for that game mode then. Pretty straightforward this week. We do have a lot of Enrage, a lot of instant kill options. So basically Mang just into a bunch of Enrage alone is probably enough to carry you through the entirety of raids this week. So should be one of the slightly easier weeks, I would say, overall. Anyways, guys, that should be about everything. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful week. Goodbye, everyone!